Betting, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Bet with the Best podcast. Its mission is to explore better ways to bet on races, to seek out new, successful players, and to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. I am very pleased to announce that the Bet with the Best podcast has its first sponsor, and it's an ideal sponsor, Amwager, an ADW built by horse players for horse players. Amwager has all sorts of unique features designed to give you an edge when betting. For example, one of my favorite tools is the conditional wagering system that's lightning fast and lets you set the minimum price you will take on a wager and then will fire off the bet at the last possible second, assuming the odds meet your minimum. We always talk about value on the Bet with the Best podcast, and this is a great tool for ensuring that you are betting only when you think you have an edge. It's great for win betting, but Amwager lets you apply it to other pools as well, such as exacta and trifecta wagers. Another tool that I really like is the Dutch wagering tool that lets you weight your bets rather than simply boxing a set of horses. We've discussed on Bet with the Best podcast the strategy of tossing a weak favorite and boxing several other horses in exactas and or trifectas and supers. And this tool lets you do that in a much more efficient way than a simple box. Yet another cool tool that Amwager provides is a fair value exacta grid. On Bet with the Best, we've talked about how sometimes there will be significant discrepancies between the win pool and the exacta pool, particularly at NYRA tracks where the computer teams are in one pool but not the other. This tool will flag such discrepancies and help point you to possible underlays and overlays. We've also talked about with computer model players on Bet with the Best, and Amwager has another great feature for those of you who are using computer models or thinking about doing so. That is the ability to wager by file upload. You can quickly upload a large number of wagers using a simple CSV format. Those are just a few of the many special features that Amwager has to offer, along with live video and race replays, free integrated form-to-win past performance information, and much more. Amwager is licensed and operated in the U.S., and best of all, they will actually pay you to play. If you sign up now and deposit and bet $150, then you will earn a $150 lump sum bonus. So there's no reason not to give Amwager a try. If you want to bet with the best, then you need the best tools there are to wager with. You need Amwager. Welcome to episode 11 of the Bet with the Best podcast. This week, I have the pleasure to be chatting with longtime Chicago-based player Frank Mistari. Welcome, Frank.
Glad to be here, Chris. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to talking horse racing and betting.
Yes, that's what we're here to talk about. And you and I have chatted before, so I'm really looking forward to this discussion. And I'm sure the listeners will really get a lot out of the conversation. And as you know, I like to start with what I call the horse player origin story. And real interested to hear how you got started in racing and how that evolved to, to where you are today as a player.
Yeah, I started as a kid. My parents and my grandparents took me to the racetrack, and it was nothing. They were not horse players per se. They did it as a fun day out on a Saturday, maybe, I don't know, once a month or, a couple times, a few times a year to either Arlington or Sportsman's or Hawthorne here in Chicago. And then our winters, we would go visit my grandparents in Florida, and we would go to Calder. And as a kid, I wasn't allowed in there because you had to be, I think it was 16 or 18, whatever. And as I got closer to the age, we kind of, snuck me in there. And that's how I got started to enjoy the game. But it was nothing serious. I didn't know anything about it. It was just a fun day out. as I moved along, I always had the gambling bug. And through my high school, college days, my friends and us, we would do it again as a fun time out. Um, Drafted by the Dodgers in 1987, thought I was going to play in the big leagues, got released 2 years later, and didn't know what the heck I wanted to do with my life. Knew I liked horses, knew I liked gambling. Um, Started, I can make a living or I can make money betting on baseball. I played professionally, and well, that didn't work out real good. I wasn't very good at it, lost a lot of money there. Took a job where I was in sales, and I had a lot of free time in the sales industry. I would fill my quotas, started hanging out at the track, and thought I knew what I was doing at the racetrack, and I had no clue what I was doing. I would go there, buy a racing form, thought I knew what I was looking at, and had no idea what I was looking at. Lost a lot of money, lost lot of money that I couldn't afford to lose, and I would probably say degenerate gambler at that time, because when you start losing money you don't have and can't afford to lose, you shouldn't be doing something like that. Um, and I was fortunate going through a couple 3 years of losing too much money. I met an individual who taught me not only how to do numbers, such as, let's call them buyer numbers, he taught me how to make figures. And on top of making a figure, he taught me through his historical watching of races and changing of numbers. He taught me how to make what I call, or he called, adjusted numbers based on pace, based on trip, based on trouble. And he came up with lengths or uh, criteria that he realized made a lot of sense. It wasn't perfect, but we would take a final number and we would just, with all the variables involved, create even a more, what I consider, accurate number based on all the different criteria. And because of that person, um, I became not necessarily a winning player right away, because I'm not even sure how many real winning players there are in horse racing, because it is so hard. A little easier 25, 30 years ago when I was learning how to do it, I thought. And this was basically in the mid 90s when I sat with him every single day and learned how to make numbers and adjusted figures and all that stuff. I hear some of your other podcast guys you dealt with, and working into that number, the bias and the trip and all of that. And that's kind of what I learned to do. And it really helped me to not lose quite as much and have some winning days also. Um, into the mid 90s, I started having a family, kids came along. I couldn't spend as much time anymore. I took a probably 10 or 12 years off where I would play sporadically, from the late 90s to 2010, 11. But it was so hard raising a family, coaching the kids, sports all the time. And I hated losing, and I hated losing my money. So I wouldn't play a lot, because if you didn't play a lot, in my opinion, it was hard to win at this game or have any success at all. So I took a bunch of years off, and about 2010, 2012, somewhere in that range, um, my boys became to the age of high school where I wasn't coaching them anymore. I had more free time, and it basically was a perfect timing for me, that I thought, to get back into it full time. And the rebates started right about then for me. The contest world came into play, especially the live money contest. And that's what I really loved about the game, was live money contests, and doing what I was doing daily, betting the horses, and then getting compensated by rebates on top of it. It was like a win-win-win. Even if I lost, I was still getting some return. And then when I got into the contests, then I was really, really hooked again. And that's where we came today, from about 2014 on to now. Um, I play just about every day. I played the Gulfstream circuit from roughly 2013 to just up till the start of Keeneland this year. I left Gulfstream and I only play one circuit. So I played Gulfstream other than contests or big days. I played Gulfstream every day, and I should have quit Gulfstream a year ago, probably. I couldn't beat the Tapeta. I couldn't beat all the different things that happen in Gulfstream, whether it's the computer guys or whatever goes on there. I stuck around too long, and last year was pretty much of a disaster for me because I thought I could beat the Tapeta uh, and all the variables that go with the Tapeta, not necessarily the Tapeta, but the horses changing surfaces all the time. And I made the decision after a dozen or so years to switch to Kentucky, and I did that at the start of the Keeneland meet, and I'm pretty happy with the move. I reached out to a couple people that you've had on your podcast who've been gracious enough to help me with some information I needed on the Kentucky circuit, and I'm thankful for that. And I'm real excited about the Ellis Park. They've had one of the craziest biases I've seen in a long time for the first 3 or 4 weeks of them running over there, and I'm really hoping that I'm going to capitalize on some of those severe biases when these horses run back here in the next couple weeks, and then that's basically how I have gone from start to finish, and probably the horse racing gambling story that I'm most proud of. My son Justin, as you guys well know, he learned from all the trials and tribulations that I went through, and I helped him learn how to handicap, and he had the benefit of sitting with guys like myself, Jim Bennis, Garrett Skiba, Mike Mulvihill, and he saw what we did, and that was one of the things that helped him to the NHC victory, back in 2021, and that was one of the greatest not only handicapping gambling stories of my family's life, but definitely one of the greatest days of my life. Something that he did, and it changed his life overnight or within one weekend. And I was super proud to be a part of that whole thing with him. And it was a great benefit for the suffering that I did 30 years ago, losing a lot of money. He got the payback out of it. So I think it definitely worked out for us.
Yeah, that must have been fun. Being there with your son when he wins the NHC. That would be a blast, I would think.
Yeah, it was definitely, there's a lot of video out there of it. And, you know, the minute or the last 15 seconds of that race was, I don't know what was going through my mind or what I was yelling at the big screen, but I'm not a big cheerer. I don't yell a lot at the races. I don't cheer for my horses much, but I know I was for Rose's Crystal that day. And like I said, it changed my son's life. And it was a crazy, crazy moment and a crazy weekend for us.
Yeah, I know since you played sports, sounds like you were a very good baseball player and you've had kids in sports. It's playing, you don't really feel the stress. At least I didn't. I mean, I've always been real competitive. You're just focused on, you know, playing the game, but watching your kids play is a whole different ball game.
Oh,
Pun intended.
yeah, no doubt. It's everything they do. Like you hit it right on the head. I didn't feel a lot of pressure when I played. I didn't feel like, but when I watch them, tomorrow or whenever we're going to hear this, but with the recorded of it tomorrow, my son's going to try to qualify for the Illinois Open for golf here, which is a big event in Illinois for mainly amateurs, but a lot of pros try to qualify for it. And every swing he takes, I could just feel my chest pumping out. Like I'm so nervous, and I know he's not even nervous about it when he's doing it, but I carry the nerves for both of us or whatever. So, but I am looking forward to watching him tomorrow, walking the course, and he's qualified 5 of the last 6 times, and last 5 of the last 6 years, and hopefully he does it again tomorrow.
Well, we wish him luck. So let's talk a little bit about that. Being a competitive player in sports, how have you brought, that sort of mentality or what you learned as a player into your horse playing, or if at all?
Yeah, definitely a lot of it. First, early on, I brought a lot of that ego, or a lot of that competitiveness into the gambling. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's bad because you think you can win at everything you do and you could be successful at it. And um, there's no way around. If you don't work hard, you're not going to be successful at it. And so the competitiveness that I learned on the baseball field playing did carry over, but sometimes it might have been a detriment to me, thinking I can win at whatever I was going to do. But as the years went by and the losses piled up in my mid-20s, I realized, hey, if you want to be good at something, you better put the hard work in. And that's one thing nowadays between my business and my horses. I make sure that I put the work in, and if I don't have time to put the work in for a day or a weekend, then I just take the day off, and I don't worry about, oh, did I miss a big score, or did I miss a good bet, because you never know if you missed a good bet or good score if you're not putting the work in. So that's the thing that I probably learned the most. You know, be selective. Don't worry about missing the big score if you can't put the time in the day before or the day of. If you have something else to do, just pass that day, because it's too hard if you're not putting all the work in. So to bet every race or bet with little time preparation, to me, at least for me, it's not a winning way to do it. So I've learned to pass on a lot of that.
So I want to kind of go back step by step over some of your horse player origin story. You talked about paying a pretty high tuition early on, and then meeting a mentor at the track and who taught you the number side of the game, and you came up with a methodology where you basically tried to, I think, create one performance number that sort of started with a speed figure, but you adjusted it for different factors like trips and pace and other things, and then you kind of use that as your main handicapping tool. Does that kind of describe what that process was, or do you want to go into any more detail about that? The figure making piece you talked about.
Yeah, that is the definite. I use that, for the main circuit that I play. I rely almost totally on my own numbers. I do use the Ragozin sheets also, which I have confidence in. Their final numbers are, I think, as good as any publication out there. I use Bristnet a little bit for their pace stuff. I think their pace stuff, it's not perfect, but it's something that I use, and I use those tools to compare to the stuff that I put together every day. So when I do it, you always want to have a little bit extra, you know, maybe it's something just to give you a little more confidence if somebody else agrees with you, or if another publication agrees with you at times. Um, I think that helps gamblers at times, and I also have nowadays Jim Bennis, who I've known for 30 some years. We've become really close in the last 4 or 5 years. We both play the same circuits. He was an Illinois guy forever. He switched over to California. We used to cross paths there. I convinced him to come to Gulfstream, and when he came to Gulfstream was a disaster. He destroyed that meet for me, so that wasn't a good job of me bringing him over. But now we both follow Kentucky circuit, and we talk every morning, and we just throw ideas around each other. Did you see this, or did you see that? And sometimes it's a good thing just to talk through things if you have that ability to deal with somebody who you feel is on par with you as far as handicapping, throwing ideas out, and discussing different things at times. And we do that every day. And I shouldn't say every day, because the one time, we both have great respect for each other. And when we're in a contest against each other, we don't even talk that day, to be honest. We really just say, because I would hate for him to talk me, into something that was his selection and then me beat him in the contest with his own selection. So we don't even talk on contest days when it comes to that. But every other day, we're bouncing things off each other just to get a little more confidence, I think, in that kind of thing. So it's good to have someone like that. But getting back to your question, those are the things that I do. I really, really rely on my own numbers and then compare it with other publications just to get a little bit more maybe confidence in the bets that I'm putting out there.
Well, I envy you having someone like Jim to on a daily basis talk about the races. You both are great players. I've been on the losing end in contests to both of you, so I have a lot of respect for you guys. And so, kind of give me a sense, because you're not the first player that's talked about how it horse players can really benefit from sharing ideas, and especially with other players that they respect and can learn from. So just me a little bit of an idea of sort of what you and Jim would talk about on a typical day when you're talking about the upcoming day of the races.
A lot of times the first thing we always run by each other, and I'll give you an example today. When we talked this morning, his first thing was, oh, the car doesn't look very good today. And I was in kind of a disagreement. There was two races that I really, really liked. And he didn't really have a strong opinion. And then when I brought it up to him and we talked about it a little bit, he kind of saw things like a little bit more my way. I think we had the same opinion in one race. He kind of thought that the horse that I liked was going to be overbet. We both thought it was a two-horse race, and we talked through, the race setup. The horse that maybe we both like or don't like, and and there are times that um, we fall on. I don't say we fall on different horses a lot, but we do fall on different. Maybe I might like one with the 2-3. He might like two with the 3-4. I mean, so it's never, or very rarely is it ever identical or exactly the same horses, but within, the three or four horses we're using, we usually get pretty close because our handicapping styles are very similar that we found out through time. We bet totally different. I'm more of a, I don't like to spread. I'm more of one of the guys where if I'm going to hit something, it's going to be worthwhile. The kind of ways that you see me in contest play. If I hit my contest bet on any given contest tournament, usually I'm going from a small number to a pretty sizable top of that leaderboard. I really don't like to grind my way through because I don't like to make a lot of bets. I like to only bet a few things. So we have a little different style of how we bet, but our handicapping, the way we see things, the way we adjust for paces and stuff like that, and the way we look at trips are very similar. So it's a good person to run things off of, and it gives us that little extra confidence, that hey, someone else sees what we see or sees what I see, and that kind of does help. But we'll go through the whole card. We'll talk about every race. We know what races we're skipping because neither one of us bets, a lot of maidens. We like to bet things that we see and we have seen. If it's a maiden race and there's 8 first starters, there's no chance me and him would bet those races. If it's a mile and a half grass race, we're probably not betting those. And many of the people that you've had on the podcast talk about, what do they like to bet? Well, I'm pretty similar to those guys. Give me a dirt race with horses who have a lot of information I've seen run, and that's where I'm going to focus most of my wagers. Every once in a while, it could be a turf race or whatever, but I focus most of my big plays because that's where I feel I can get um, the best edge that I possibly can, because I know those horses. I can get a true number, I can get a true adjusted number. And if the value is there, which has been the game changer in the last 20, 25 years, is the value is just not out there. A lot of the people on your podcast have brought that up, and I'm in total agreement that horses who might have been 10, 12 to 1 years ago are now 3, 4 to 1, and it's undervalued for that horse. And that's what's made the game really, really, really difficult for guys like myself who are, I don't use a computer. I just do everything by a racing form and my own numbers. So I'm way behind the times of trying to get the computer help like some of these guys are. So that's made the game real hard.
But you do feel like the work you put into those performance figures you're the only one that has, give you an edge. It's not something that's publicly available. It's based on some of the information out there, but that's sort of where you think you get a big edge, is in that the work you put in there.
Oh, definitely. Like, a bias. The biggest one for me, I think, is biases. There's some adjusted numbers that I have right now on some of these Ellis Park races. To be honest, I can't even believe it myself, because I played a race last week, that a horse came back, and the horse ran so bad in his first start at Ellis. It was one of those where I couldn't believe the horse ran that bad. It was almost like the horse, maybe something went wrong in the race. And I talked to Jim in the morning, and I'm like, Jim, you know me, when I'm strong in my opinions, very confident in my opinions, and when I see something I like, I'm gonna bet it pretty heavy. And he's like, yeah, I know what you see, but yeah, something might have went wrong. And I didn't bet as much as I normally would, because I had that doubt in my head, and my adjusted number was right. And that's what made me excited again, is that if some of these biases come back that the computer guys are never going to find, in my opinion, unless they have somebody watching the races and doing adjusted numbers and have confidence in their adjusted numbers. But the bias type races that we're seeing at Ellis for the first 3 or 4 weeks here so far, when it gets back to a neutral track, there should be some great opportunities. And I would love to see bias racetracks, for 2 weeks straight at every track, and then go back to neutral for 2 weeks, and then back to a bias for 2 weeks. And then guys like myself who watch replays over and over and follow a circuit, that's where I think my edge is, by making my own figures. And we just don't see a lot of that as much as we used to, I don't think.
So, and regarding the bias, do you think the value there is playing them back later off the bias number, or do you think that people have caught on pretty quickly at Ellis and they kind of build in, the bias into the price, so it's hard to get a price playing the bias today? You're more focused on trying to get these horses when they run back and they might not be in such a favorable or unfavorable situation. Is that sort of the way you're playing that?
Yeah, definitely. Because the horses, if it's a bias, if it's a rail speed bias today, well, most people who are, horse handicappers of any decency, they could pick up a racing form today or whatever and say, oh, the speed and rail is good. I could tell who's making the lead. I don't think that's a super hard thing to do, or you could see one or two horses that are going to be close to the front, and you could take advantage of that pretty easily. But to bet back these horses who were, mid-pack horses who were 3, 4 wide on the 10 post, and they're running against a severe rail bias. Even I can't give an adjusted number at times that even makes sense. But when the horses run back and they run way better than they did against the bias, that's the things that I think are an advantage, to myself, and that I can capitalize on. But trying to capitalize on a rail bias, I really don't like those days, to be honest, because if I think a horse is going to make the lead from the one post and he breaks too slow and has to rush up wide for some reason, well, I just lost my advantage. So when I'm making bets, I'd like the track to be neutral, to be honest. But leading up to that, I want some biases just so I can find hidden horses that create value for me.
So that's one of the big advantages of focusing on the one circuit. You feel like you're really on top of, any sort of bias. Do you also watch a lot of races? Are trips a big part of what you factor into your performance figure?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I watched the races from, like I said, Gulfstream. I knew that circuit like the back of my hand up until the Tapeta came into play, and then I felt like I didn't know nothing because I was doing so bad at it that, like I said, I should have left a long time ago. Because after the first 3 or 4 months, I was so bad, especially on the Tapeta races. And then when horses would come off the Tapeta, I really struggled, and I should have just said the heck with it and stopped playing there, because I gave a lot of money away last year that at that circuit that I shouldn't have, when I knew the horses so well. And maybe that was a detriment. I knew the horses so well that I thought, oh yeah, I can still beat this no matter what. And I was wrong. And I thought that the PETA would be a great thing, because that should have created a lot of issues for other players with three different surfaces, between grass. Well, they don't have grass now, but it should have been, in a perfect world, with three different surfaces. I should have been able to capitalize, and I just didn't, and it got me to leave. And now that's how I got to Kentucky. Yeah, that's kind of how I do it every day. But I do watch all the replays. I take trips on every race that at Ellis, and it'll follow back into Churchill and Keeneland and Turfway. I'll stay on the Kentucky circuit as long as I think I have some edge, which doesn't always lead to winning necessarily, but in the long run, hopefully it does. And that's why I like to play that one circuit.
So do you think part of when they went to Tapeta that might have hurt you in terms of your edge is it made it harder to do good figures because you had so few races on the three different surfaces? Did you think that had anything to do with it, or just the Tapeta dynamics in general?
I think that had some to do with it, but for the first probably, I forget now, but for an extended period of time, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, the Tapeta played so crazy to me. And there's some information out there that shows, the sprints on the Tapeta, you had to be within 2 lengths of the leader, at the top of the stretch to win. But on the routes, they were coming from 3, 4 wide and closing from far back, from more than 6 lengths. And to me, that doesn't make sense. Why should going shorter um, have a different factor in whether the horse is up front or closers on the same surface? And I couldn't figure it out. No matter what I tried, I couldn't figure it out. And so eventually it just got me to say, hey, I'm just not playing this meet that I love to play for, a dozen years. I really enjoyed it. And then when they took out the turf course this year, it took away some more good racing. So I basically had to, in my opinion, move circuits if I was going to stay in the game. And this is pretty much my last circuit. I've tried every other circuit full time. California, New York, Florida. Florida was my most successful. That's why I stayed there. But now Kentucky's the last one, and if that's not a success, I might just become a contest only player. I'm not sure that works real good if you're not playing daily. I think for me to play daily helps my contest play, keeps me sharp, and how I bet and everything like that. But as I get older here and get into retirement here in the next couple of years, and I need something to do, so that's why I do the horses. But if I can't be successful, or if I'm losing a lot of money, I'm not going to do it, because I don't like to give away the money that I've earned as I get closer to retirement.
So that must have been a tough decision that you're going to change circuits and you made the move to Kentucky. So maybe talk a little bit about how you made that transition, what you had to do to get up to speed on the new circuit and to get comfortable and confident.
Yeah, so it was a huge. I mean, I struggled with it because I didn't want to make the move because it's starting all over again. There's coming up with new pars for all these tracks and getting to know the trainer jockey combos and getting to know everything is brand new. It's starting all over for me, and I don't like that. So I really struggled with it. But like I said, I probably should have done it about 6 or 8 months sooner because I wasn't doing well at my main track Gulfstream, so I stayed too long. I did know that, and but coming over here, like I said, I reached out to a couple people who knew that circuit, and they were more than helpful to me. They offered their time. I asked questions. They gave me some information on some pars and stuff like that that I needed for the all the tracks, and then I went to work with figuring out how to make my own numbers for Keeneland and Churchill, and now with Ellis, and I'm doing that on a daily basis. So and I'll continue to do that. And so far, it's been so good. It's been really a pretty good success for me so far to make the change. A lot different than I'm used to because at Gulfstream it was one track for 10 months out of the year. They were doing Calder for a little while there, or Gulfstream Park West, whatever they called it. Here, it's going to be a little different because you go through so many different tracks. And then when I get to Turfway, it's going to be all, synthetic for that whole meet. So it's going to be different. It's going to be something that is a challenge, but I do like that challenge. And so far, I'm excited about it. And so far, it's been something that um, has been has been successful financially so far for the start of it, and hopefully it continues.
So about how long how long ago did you make the switch to Kentucky?
It was the opening day at Keeneland when I first made the switch. So what was that, April 1st, roughly, or right around sometime in April?
So not
I
long
played,
ago at all.
no, not long enough. It's only a few months. I played the Keeneland circuit every day. I played the Churchill until they switched over to Ellis, and now at Ellis. So it's only been 4 or 5 months, whatever that is, 4 months, something like that. So it's still a learning process for me. There's still a lot of stuff that I don't know. Um, and there's so many differences. I found out real quick that Dale Romans at Gulfstream is a lot different than Dale Romans in Kentucky. I did find out real quick. He is a different trainer for whatever reason, whether he gets his horses ready for Kentucky or whatever it is. But at Gulfstream, he was the kind of guy that I was playing against most of the time. Here, it's totally opposite. He has everything ready to go in Kentucky. When he sends them out, it seems like they're all on go. And those are the intricacies that it takes some time to figure that out. It's not just gonna fall in your lap. You got to follow it, and you have to it has to hit you right in the face that okay, this is a different thing than you're used to, so make the adjustment. And I did pretty quick on that.
So how much time do you put in? Like if you're going to play a day or that during the day, counting the time you're playing the races and the preparation, is this like a full-time job? How many hours are you putting in? Because you're making your own figures, watching trips, doing all that. Seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, it is a ton of work. I mean, it's crazy number. It's crazy amount of hours. It's definitely more time. And I hate to say this. I mean, I can say it now because I got 3 boys who work for me in my business, in my insulation contracting business. So they're a great help, which gives me more time. But I definitely spend more hours doing my horse racing. When I'm sitting there watching the races alone, you know, our time, Ellis starts today at 11:45. The last race goes off at 4 o'clock. So, I got well over 4 hours into that totally just watching during it. And that's not even counting my preparation or what I do after the races to create my numbers. So creating the numbers is a lot quicker for me now that some of the numbers I can kind of do throughout the day if I know the track variant is constant for the last week or so. I can make the numbers pretty quick, and then doing the adjustment. That isn't as much time, but going back and handicapping for the next day. I like to handicap the night before. So I'll start, this week we'll race Friday at Ellis. So sometime Thursday night, I'll spend an hour and a half um, looking at the card, and then I go to bed, clear my mind, wake up again, get the scratches, and probably spend another hour, an hour and a half on the card again. So I probably got 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours in a card. And so I am spending a lot of hours doing it, and but it's something I love. I'm passionate for it. I love the game. I love doing the numbers. I love the everything to do with horse racing. I really enjoy it, so it doesn't feel like work, and to go out and sell insulation that I do for my living, or have done for a living ever since I got released from baseball. That kind of seems a little bit more like a job, because I'm not as passionate about it where I am horse racing. So when you're working at it, it doesn't even feel like work. It's just fun. It's something I would do probably anyway, because I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think we all share that passion. At least most of the listeners out there can relate to that for definitely. So let's just talk about you described sort of how you approach things, and you're in that second step of looking at the races. You've got your numbers in front of you. How do what gets you interested in, what's going to point you to a bet that you might want to make? What are you looking for? Give us an example of what might get you interested in playing, one or two races or sequence of races or whatever on the, Ellis Park. When's the next time they run? We're recording on Sunday night. They run Wednesday. Is that
Friday. They run Friday.
Friday?
They only
Oh,
run yeah, they're 3 days a week now.
okay.
So yeah. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll first look at start at the beginning of the card. I'll look at the race shape. I try to set up the race shape first, whether, if there's lone speed, if there's a lot of speed and it sets up for closers. So I'll go through and do all that. As soon as I do that, then I will incorporate my adjusted numbers. And my adjusted numbers would say something like, okay, the one horse last time ran, um, in a fast pace, and the adjusted number I gave him, let's just say it's an 85 buyer, if you use it for that reference. I'm on a different grading scale, but my numbers, I can cross them over to a buyer easily. But if he was an adjusted 85 when he ran in the fast pace race last time, now the race sets up where maybe he's lone speed, and last time he ran, fifth by 7 lengths because they went way too fast early. Now he's in that totally different race shape. So the way I look at it, he's going to run that adjusted number because he doesn't have to go fast today. So his adjusted 85 buyer that I gave him, he's going to do that in a real number this time, potentially. And when I see that, and then I look and, oh, okay, he's probably a little hidden because he's been dirtied up his last 3 starts. I've given him an adjusted 85 buyer. Today he's loose on the lead. He potentially is going to run that 85 buyer, and he might be 4-1, 6-1, 8-1, whatever the number is. I mean, I don't just necessarily say to myself, oh, I'm only betting 6-1 shots or better. I mean, to me, value is value. If I come up with a race where the winning horse in that scenario is going to be 2-1, and I think it's fair value, but I could team them up with another horse who's 10-1, and I can get an exacta that's going to pay, $50 for $2. It doesn't matter to me. I'll find a way to turn that 2-1 shot into some good value if it's out there. And I play so many different types of wagers. I'm not a big win better. Typically, the horses usually have to be, a fairly substantial price for me to make a win bet. But I'll structure, exactas, or sometimes I make just tries. Some other races I just make superfectas. I mean, it's totally different. I don't have one pool that I just necessarily always play in. It all depends on what um, what my numbers say and what my handicapping tells me to do. Sometimes I don't want to play in every pool. The value might just be in the exacta pool or the tri pool. If I know it's a 3-horse race and I have 1 horse on top of 2 horses, but I have to go 5 deep to feel confident in the try, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to spread that much. I don't like to do that. That's not. I can't even get myself. And me and Jim Bennis talk about this. He makes fun of me all the time. Because I don't like, and no one likes making losing bets, obviously, but I don't even like to punch what I know is losing tickets. If I'm going 2 horses by 4 by 5 at a try, there's a lot of guaranteed losing tickets in there, and I don't like that. I'd rather be wrong in a race, but when I do hit it, um, I'm going to hit it for significant money by just being almost perfect. That's how I like to play. That's like how I like to do it. And I can do that because I'm more selective on the races, and I'm only playing the races where I feel I'm very confident and I have a good opinion, which doesn't always mean I'm winning, but I'm going to play the races I feel real strongly about. So if I feel strongly, I shouldn't be spreading a lot. And that's what's helped me in the contest world is on a limited budget in the contest world. I'm used to playing, you know, straight exactas or, 2 exactas in a race only. And that really, really helps me in the contest play where some other guys, they're used to spreading. So they're using up a lot of their money that is in their bankroll because you can't go back into your pocket if you lose the first 3 races or first 2 bets. You're broke in the contest and you're done. Where in the live money, just betting every day, if you lose your first 2 bets, you can dig back in your pocket and make the third and fourth and fifth bet if you want. So that's what I like about how my structure of betting translates into the contest world.
So we'll get into the contest in a little bit because I know that you already mentioned that's you really enjoy that and you're really good at that. But let's stick for now just with your betting. It sounds like you're mostly a vertical player because I haven't heard you even mention any horizontal plays. But is that true? Are you more focused on the verticals or you
Yeah,
spread?
definitely. And another conversation we had this morning, I said to Jim Bennis, I said, you know what? Because I don't play Saratoga. I don't even look at Saratoga. It's not even on my radar because it's not my Kentucky circuit. But, I have friends who text me in their plays and what they're doing. And, I had a good friend yesterday who was live to some big money in a pick 4. And then I look at the pool and the pool's $1 million roughly. And I said to Jim this morning, I said, maybe I should just play the Saratoga pick 4s and pick 5s and just spread like crazy. And I think eventually I might land on a huge score in a pick 4 or 5 just by spreading and making a 50 cent or $1 ticket and playing some craziness in a few legs like that. And he laughed at me and said, I don't see you spreading like that after all these years where you never did it. So I said to myself, yeah, I'm probably not going to do that. So I don't play pick 4s and pick 5s because again, I play so few races a day. It would really have to fall into my lap where, I like 3 of the 5 or 3 of the 4 races in the sweep sequence before I play those pick 4s and pick 5s. And that's never going to happen. Today, um, I liked 3 of the first 5 races at Ellis somewhat. And uh, I looked at the pick 5 sequence, and race 3 today was 2-year-olds with 8 or 9 first starters. Well, that already knocks me out because I'm not going to guess on those horses. I'm not going to go 8 deep or 6 deep or 4 deep just guessing. So right away, that means I'm out of the pick 5. I'm not even going to play it. So very rarely do I play those sequences. Usually it's, pick a race, make the, hit the exacta pool, hit the tri pool. If I'm betting a race and I really have a strong opinion, I'll bet tries, exactas, and superfectas in a race and cover all the pools sometimes. But playing those pick 4s and pick 5s just too hard to me. Where if I hit 3 of the 5 legs or have strong opinions, I always miss those other two, and that frustrates me. So I don't even get involved in those pools.
So you are primarily a vertical player and you like to play it tight, and what some of our past guests have called, you like to go for the kill shot or shoot for the pin. You really are sort of tight and looking for that big score, not spreading out and kind of reducing variance.
Exactly. That's exactly how I play. I just um, I'm very confident in my selections, and some people will call me cocky and arrogant, and I know I am, but that's the way that my brain works, and that's the way I like to do it. And it's not right for everybody, but for me, I could withstand, some losing, because I do have times where, if I'm playing one race a day and now Ellis is only 3 days a week. I mean, there's possibility I can go 2 weeks without cashing a ticket when I'm only playing, one race a day. That's only 3 bets a week. I'm not going to hit a ton of, if I was hitting 2 of those 3 bets all the time, I would have been retired a long time ago. I could probably tell you that, but that doesn't happen. We know that that's not something that anybody is that good at. So when I'm playing a few, I can withstand losses, and I know that they're going to come and go, and I'm real good at you know a bad beat or a tough loss. Hey, I just go right to the next race and I don't worry about it. I'm real good at that tolerance level of the losses, because I expect it's going to happen way more times than the cashing the winning tickets. But when I do cash, it makes up hopefully for those 4 or 5 losing bets that I made earlier in the week.
So I should have added in, you're pretty selective which races you're going to play. So let's just take us through an example of it can be hypothetical or real, of something that gets you interested, and how you attack it, how you choose which pools you're going to play, just to get a better sense for how you structure your bets.
But yeah, I can give you a good example today of a race I was going to play. I think it was the 8th race at Ellis today on Sunday. The morning line on the horse I liked, I believe, was 8-1. I think it was the one horse. It was a horse that ran against the bias, that I had a big adjusted number on. I think he only had 2 starts, once as a 2-year-old, which wasn't miserable. This year as a 3-year-old was his only start, and he was just his final number came back okay, but his adjusted number to me was significantly better than um, almost everybody in the race except for 2 horses. But those 2 horses drew outside today. I think it was an 11 or 12 horse field, if I recall. The 2 good horses drew outside. And I knew I was pretty confident the one was going to get a real good trip today. And I was going to play one with, I think it was one with 10-11, and then one with 10-11, with 10-11-12. I think were the numbers actually. And the opening click, the one was 2-1. And right away, I'm like, okay, he's nowhere near what I thought the price was going to be. I was probably going to accept somewhere in the 5-6-1 range. Um, and if I was going to play that race, which I wound up passing because I didn't think the value was there, I would have played something like one with 10-11, with 10-11-12 and tries. I would have made big exactas, one with 10-11. Probably would have made 10-11 with one as like what I call a saver bet. I'm only going to make it for 25% of what I'm making my top exact on the other way. And then if the price is right, if the horse would have been 6-1, I would have made a win bet also. So you can look at that, and basically, I think if you did the math, 1 by 2 by 3, that's only 4 combinations, and then I reverse it with the 1 and the 2 hole. Usually I'll do it in exactas then as my saber bet. So there's only 2 combinations there. Um, so I'm not making a lot of combinations when I'm putting my bets through the window. I want to be right, and I'm going to only bet when I'm really confident that I'm going to be right. And when I didn't bet the race, um, I got beat or the horse that I was going to bet, the one wound up running third, got beat by a Brad Cox horse who first time he ran on the turf, I think last time they put him in the dirt, and he ran a race that I could have never seen the horse running. So I wouldn't have won. And my horse just, if you watch the race again, and anybody who listens to this, if you go back and watch it again, um, in my notes, which I'm not going to capitalize on next time anyway, so I can give out all this information. The horse is going to be way over bet next time, but he was on the rail. He broke within, I'm going to say, 2 lengths of the lead. He sat there, and the horse in front of him, who was actually the favorite, who I was totally betting against, was the 2 horse in the race, who went off at, I want to say 2-1, 9-2, 9-5, something like that, who I was totally negative on, totally stopped right in front of my horse. My horse got shuffled probably 5-6 lengths, never had a chance to move. He was, like I said, within 3 lengths of the lead. And by the time he got away from that horse who was, slowing down in front of him, he was blocked really bad, 5-6 lengths. And then he made a run, but, he already gave up a ton of ground to the leaders at that time, made a good close, but was never going to win the race at that point. But next time, a lot of people are probably gonna see that, and he would be a bet back for me. But I'm pretty confident that that's not a hidden bet back. A lot of people saw it, and he'll be way undervalued next time. But that's usually a good example of how I make my bets. Rarely would I bet. If I'm going to go 2 horses by 3 horses by 4 horses in a trifecta, that usually means those are going to be real big prices, and I'm not real sure of the race, and I'm just taking shots against the favorites and hoping for something crazy to happen on a smaller bet for me, but spreading a little bit. But even that's a rarity. I don't do that very often. I like to be real strong in my opinions and try to capitalize on it when I'm right.
So it sounds like when you have a strong opinion, it's usually there's some horse you want to key, and if the price is right from a value standpoint, you may play it to win. But then what you'll do is you're also looking at some secondary opinions, usually probable. I'm guessing like in this example, there was a favorite you didn't like and a couple other horses you thought fit, and you'll use them in the exotics with the key horse, maybe exactas, maybe tries, even supers. Is that kind of the way you go?
Certainly. This is probably my favorite bet that I just explained. The favorite, the 9-5 shot that, if I could have put a call out to people and said, hey, he's 9-5, I'll give you 3-1, I would have loved to take a lot of action on that kind of thing. So those are the kind of races where I love, where I know the favorite's vulnerable, and I'm not necessarily then going for a 20-1 shot. Give me a 4-1, 5-1 um, who I think is good, and let me put him in a combination with another couple 4-5 shots, or 4-1 shots, 5-1 shots, 8-1s, and those are the kind of races that's my happy spot. Where I really feel comfortable. Those are the races I have the most successes in, because and I think their 4-1 shots are out there, 5-1 shots are out there. We know how often they win. To go out there and find a 20-1 shot um, every day, I'm not that good. I'll tell you that right now. I can't find a 20-1 shot that's going to win that all that often, that I really like and I feel real confident in. And I think most people can't either. So to hit those things, um, you're not going to find 20-1s that often. It just doesn't happen that often. So you got to narrow in on the ones where we have more opportunities to get horses to win at 4-1 or 5-1. You get more frequency of being correct on your opinions. But betting against those bad favorites, that's the kind of things that me and Jim Bennis look for. And and that's what we both are very, very good at, I think, is when we talk in the morning, we know the bad favorites right away, and we try to capitalize on betting against those horses. Uh, and I think our success rate of betting against those horses is pretty good. Doesn't mean we're still winning the race, but we're not getting beat by those bad favorites or weak favorites that often. It's usually, if we do get beat, it's not that weak favorite that beats us. It's somebody else that we didn't have. Like I said, like, the Brad Cox horse that won today, I could have never had that horse. So I don't feel bad that I missed it, because I would have never bet that horse anyway. He just ran, he ran something that I was never foreseeing him running, and I was destined to lose that race most likely today, because that horse ran something that I could never have accounted for.
Well, you're not the first horse player that lost to a Brad Cox horse that ran a huge number he didn't expect. So you're
Right.
you're definitely not alone.
That's right.
So it sounds like you are looking for those vulnerable favorites. That's one thing that gets you interested. So you have that race. This is a part I haven't quite nailed you down on. So you've got a vulnerable favorite. You need a sort of a next opinion of some horse you want to key, or are you willing to just pick a group of horses and play them in the exotics, or do you really need that second opinion of some other horse other than the favorite that you can key on? Because you like to keep it tight. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, I definitely need a key horse.
Okay.
Like I said, I like to keep it small. So even betting against that favorite, I need to also narrow on one key horse that my main bet is going to be with him on top usually, and then I'm going to have some other stuff with him second. But that key horse is going to be, if that key horse doesn't run first or second for me, I'm not catching a ticket, and that's always how I play. So if I give out my, if my best bet of the day is not running first or second, I'm not. There's no chance of me cashing a ticket, because I don't have a lot of different combinations going.
And are you tossing the favorite there? You're not using it at all when you find that weak favorite. You're tossing the favorite and keying on the horse you like. Is that main?
Yeah, definitely. There's no chance. There's nothing that I think this horse was 2-1 or 9, whatever he was, 2-1, 5-2. There's not a number, I don't think, that would have got me to use him. I know he wasn't going up to 5-1. He was, like I said, 2-1, 5-2 in the program. I knew he was going to be around there, and I always hope that he's even lower, which I think he actually was. So there was no number that would have got me to use that favorite. And again, if my key horse wins that race and the favor runs second, there's a lot, and I'm definitely negative on the favorite. I'm not cashing there either. I mean, I have times where I decide not to make a win bet, and that favorite does beat me potentially. He runs second, and I get nothing, and I don't worry about it, because that's not how I play. I don't worry about, oh, my best bet won and he was 4-1. Well, my best bet won, but my other best bet in the race was that the favorite wasn't going to run, so I was wrong, and I don't feel bad about not getting the win bet. I just move on to my next thing and my next race or my next opportunity, and betting against that vulnerable favorite is a real key, like you said. Give me those two things: that the weak favorite I could bet against, and another key horse that I can jump on, and those are the races that I'm going to try to attack.
So you don't use a vulnerable favorite defensively?
Never. I would no. That's not something. Yeah, I would never do that. Because this whole game is based on our opinions and what we're doing against the other people. It's parimutuel. So if my opinion is that this horse is not as fast as the 3 or 4 horses I'm using, I'm not using him defensively just because the public is telling me that I should. I'm not listening to that. I have to have faith in what I do every day and what I know. The same thing I do in my business, I'll relate it to that. That I put out a job estimate for 100,000, and my customer comes to me and says, your competitor says he could do it for 80,000. Well, if he could do it for 80,000, let him have it. I can't do the job for 100,000 because my numbers say I have to be at 100,000 to make money. So doesn't mean that I didn't screw up my estimate and I was too high. but I'm not taking the chance to do it for 80,000 based on somebody else's opinion or somebody else's um, numbers or handicapping that they're looking at. I rely on my handicapping and my numbers, and I'm going to live with that, and I'm always going to be that way. And sometimes to a fault, Jim Bennis will say to me, you are a little too greedy. And I'm like, yeah, I know I am, but that's my personality trait. And I'm going to be 60 years old here and the end of next year. And I don't think I'm switching anything anytime soon.
I like that analogy. That was a good analogy with the estimates against your competitors. You got to keep that noise out and trust your numbers and your instincts.
Right, definitely.
Definitely the same with horse players. So I just want to spend a little more time on the bets. So you like to keep it tight, and you found the vulnerable favorite. You've got your key horse. So whether or not you're going to play exactas or tries or supers kind of depends on your opinion of the others. If you can narrow it down enough, you might play some tries and supers, but if you have to spread too much, you might just focus on the exacta. Is that kind of, am I reading you right in that?
Definitely. That's definitely it. And once I don't have a strong opinion on any position in the race, whether it's obviously if I don't have a key horse, I'm not betting the race. If I don't have a couple key horses to use in second, I'm not betting the race unless the horse is a decent number, and then I might just make a win bet. There's times where I make a win bet only because um, I don't know. I'm not confident who's running second. I'm not going to put a 10-1 shot that I like on top and go, that 10-1 shot over 5 horses. I'd rather just take that money and put it all to win on that horse. I don't want to spread around a lot, and so yeah, like you hit it perfectly. If I got to go too deep in any spot, I avoid it. I just don't do it.
So when you say too deep, you mean TOO, right? Too
Yes,
deep. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
right. Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. Like I said, most of the time, as deep as I'll go would be a key horse on top with 2 horses in the 2 hole, and maybe four horses in the 3 hole. But most likely, it's 1 by 2 by 3. Those are the races I really key on. When I have that opinion, that's when I'm betting it. If not, if I got to go key horse by 2 horses, and then I'm like, God, there's 7 horses who I think are all similar for third. I just won't play the try that race. I'll just narrow in. I'll take the money and put it into the exactas and maybe a win bet only.
So how about sizing the bets? Do you bet sort of a fixed amount on a race you like, or does it vary? And if it does, how do you decide how much you're going to put into each race? And then that follow-on question would be, how do you divide it among the pools, when exacta try?
Yeah, you usually I don't have a set number. I have a comfort level where I'm not going to bet 5,000 in a race or something like that. That's out of my comfort level. But I have a comfort level where if it works out where I decide I'm making a win bet, exactas and trifectas, I'll spread it out a little bit, but I'm always going to have my exacta is always going to take the majority of my bankroll. On a strong play, it's always going to be more money in the exacta pools for me. Um, and people will say to me at times, well, don't you feel bad if you miss the exacta and you're betting way more in the exacta than the win price? And I'm like, you know what? In the long run, I think by making bigger exactas, if my horse wins, that means I set the race up right. I set up the pace of the race right. My horse is going to run to win based on my numbers and how the race shape. And if that's the case, if he wins, most likely my next 2 horses are going to run with him. And I don't feel bad about, you know, passing on a big win bet and missing the exacta. So a high percentage of my dollar in a race is always in the exacta pools. And then probably the try pool in the win bet would probably get the same amount of money bet. If it's $300 on the win side, I probably got $300 in the try side, and then probably at least double that in the exacta pools. And that's usually how I try to do it.
So like 1/4 to the win and try, and 1/2 to the exact, assuming you played all three. That's kind of how you allocate across the pools.
Yeah, that's a pretty good breakdown. I would say that's very realistic of most of my bets. And if I don't make the win bet, I might jack up my exacta a touch more, or my tries a touch more, and take the money out of the win. But I wouldn't necessarily, oh, I got to bet $1,000 in the race. I never say to myself, that's what I'm doing. It's it would vary, per race, per opinion as to what I'm doing. But I also learned, don't bet out of your comfort level, because once you start betting out of your comfort level, whatever that is, I mean, who am I to say you should bet, you know, 50 in a race, or $4 in a race, or 2,000 in a race? Everybody has to stay within their own comfort level, because once you start getting out of your comfort level, you know, you think totally different, and the bankroll is what is going to make you make bad decisions. And I don't want to get to that back to that person I was 30 years ago, Chris.
So you're really selective, and it's not unusual for you to only play 1 or 2 races on the card. Is that true? I mean, you may
Yeah,
play more, but just like a typical day, how many, say it's a 10 race card, how many races would you play on average?
I would say at the most it would probably be three. Most likely, I'm not finding more than three bets in a card. Like I said, if it's I think today Ellis had two maiden races with a lot of first starters, so already that narrows me down to 8 races to choose from. They had a 1.25 mile turf race. That is not my specialty, so that narrowed down another race that I most likely did not are never going to have a strong opinion in. So I really only have 7 races to choose from, and that's been a game changer. I think years ago, when in the Chicago days, when you had a track on Saturday at Arlington, and they had 25,000 people at Arlington on a Saturday, and 24,800 of them were just there for the fun of it. You know, Guys who play every day ate that up. So we had way, way more betting opportunities when we had, bad money in the pool. And bad money is, the the person who comes out and they're betting their favorite jockey, or their favorite colors of the horse, whatever it is. That's what good horse players want to take advantage of. Years ago, we had that. Nowadays, there's too many sharp players out there, who are way better than me, who are in my pools every day, and I don't like that. I don't want to compete against Jim Bennis. I don't want to compete against my son. I don't want to compete against Mike Mulvihills, my other good friend. You know, I want to compete against the people who are coming out, 3 times a year. They got a lot of money in their pocket, and they really don't care about giving it away to the racetracks. And hopefully, I'm one of the guys who's going to take advantage of that. And we don't have that as much anymore. Nowhere near as it was pre-simulcasting days. I think is what really hurt the guys who play every day. We lost our huge edge.
Yeah, that's a common theme. We hear it from a lot of the players. I want to go back a little bit where you talked about confidence, because you do 2 things I think could undermine your confidence possibly, unless you handle it right. And the first was, you talked to Jim. How do you handle, like, when he has a different opinion? Does that make you change your opinion? Do you maybe uh and does it maybe I'm just curious how, when there's a difference, how you handle that.
We
And
both we both would answer this the same way. We never listen to each other. I shouldn't say that. That's a bad way of putting it. We listen to each other, but we are done handicapping when we talk. So when we get, and we'll talk usually 45 minutes before the races start. So I'm done handicapping. He's usually done handicapping. Sometimes he isn't because he takes too long. He takes a lot longer than me. But we always talk when we're done handicapping, and he will almost never sway me off a horse, and never will I sway him off a horse. Um, but we do talk through, if I have a best bet, um, he'll give me sometimes, oh, here's what I saw that maybe you didn't see, and maybe you should relook at it. And most of the times we both have looked at the cards so thoroughly that, yeah, I saw that, Jim, and I still like the horse that I'm on. So it is so rare that we talk each other off horses, that we like. What we do help each other on is, um, there might be a 20-1 shot or 15-1 shot that we're using in tries or supers that the other one of us might have missed. A horse who's, because you can make a nice score, and this is something we probably didn't touch on, and a lot of guys don't always touch on. You don't necessarily have to have the winner of a race. If you have a 20-1 shot, who's going to run third, and your winner, your key horse that you like in first is 2-1, 9-5, you're still going to get a great return on that try if you can find that hidden 20-1 shot or 25-1 shot to run third. And those are the kind of things that me and him talk through. If I have a good bet or he has a good bet, then he'll tell me, yeah, I like the one with the 2-3 with the 2-3-4. And I'm like, hey, did you see the sevens trip last time? Or did you see this or that? He's going to be 25-1. You might want to use him in the 3-hole. That's what we, really rely on or help each other through a lot of times. And, because our skills and our handicapping is a lot similar, it comes back to that confidence thing where I trust him. There's no one out there who, there's two people that I know in my life where if they called me and said, Frank, I know you're going to be gone all day today. You might want to make a little bet on such and such today. Jim Bennis, and there's the guy who taught me how to handicap. Those are the only two guys that I would bet in the blind off of, and respect their opinions. And not saying there's not great players out there. I'm not saying that. But those are two guys that I know that I have crazy confidence in how they handicap, and I would listen to them occasionally in the blind and make a small bet. I would never bet a lot of money, but I would make a little bit of money because I do trust them, or bet a little money because I do trust their opinions.
So that's interesting you brought that up. Do you on the longer price horses, do you ever key? Is your key ever like an underneath key, or do you always play with that like primary opinion on top and then you just might have secondary keys underneath?
Yeah, it does happen where I'm keying that 20-1 shot, third only in a try, or maybe I'll use them second, and I'll put a few horses on top. It does happen on occasion, but most of the time, I want to narrow in on a key horse that I think is going to run, that's going to win most likely. That's how I do it, and I might play that winning key horse on top with another key horse second and third. I might play my 4-1 on top of a 20-1 in a try second and third. And there's times where it comes back to beat me where, I get so confident in my key, I don't even make a backup exacta with the 20-1 shot who I didn't think could win. There's 20-1. There was a horse today that another friend of mine called me on and asked my opinion, and the horse, went off at a decent number, and he was going to bet him to win. And I said, well, I can't come up with a trip that this horse is going to win. I said, but he's a horse that I'm definitely using in the 3-hole because he's a big price. He's a little hidden, and I can use him there. But I can't come up with a scenario where this horse is going to get a trip, going 5.5 on the turf where he's, not going to be 3 wide at some point, and being 3 wide, he's not good enough to beat, a couple of these other horses. And that was kind of what happened. I think the horse ran 4th today and stuff like that. So usually I need to my confidence level was the highest when I have a key horse to key off of, and rarely am I just keying in the horse in the 2 or 3 hole. Not saying I don't do it, because I do it once in a while, but that's not one of my main plays usually.
So you focus on one circuit. Do you target any of like the big day they had at Ellis here recently, the what was it, Stephen Foster Day? Do you target those at all, play more on those days, or is it just another day on the circuit?
Yeah, it's just another day for me. I mean, I think when I say I play one circuit, it's a little misleading, because like with Del Mar starting next week, I'll play the Del Mar circuit a little bit, because I will be down for the Del Mar contest, in 2 weeks. So I do want to, get myself acclimated to what's happening leading up to the contest. So I do follow that circuit. In years past, when I was playing Gulfstream, I'd always follow the Keeneland circuit. I wouldn't follow it as close as I follow my main circuit, but I would watch it enough to know, hey, is there biases, or is this jockey really hot with this trainer all of a sudden? I wanted to know those little things, so that when I got to the contest, I at least had some idea of what's going on. And then I would spend, 3 or 4 days leading up to the contest day just handicapping like crazy for that contest day, and just trying basically to find one play. That's really kind of what I do on those kind of things when I'm playing outside of my circuit.
So let's talk about contests. That's a good lead in. So describe a little bit about how you approach contests and how it might be, how you play it differently, if at all, than you do on a regular day, and what you try to do to get an edge on the other players. Are you shooting for a number? Just curious how you go about that. You're trying to load up on one horse and go all in. What's your approach?
Yeah, usually, it's all bankroll based. Most of the contests, other than BC and some of the bigger ones, most of the contests we play in, we have a limited bankroll. You have $1,000 or $2,000. So if it's $1,000 bankroll, the chances are, at the very most, I'm only making 2 bets out of that. I'll bet 500 per race, and try to cash for, you know, whatever that number is. If I think the number needs to be 7,000 or 10,000, I try to create a ticket structure that would get me to that. And sometimes, if I do that, my opinion might only be, one race, and I might bet the whole 1,000 in one race in the contest. And the nice thing is you get to buy a second entry or multiple entries in some of these things. And if you have a multiple entry, well, now your bankroll went from 1,000 to 2,000. Now I potentially could turn that into 2, maybe 3 bets between my 2 entries. And the way I play daily is the exact same way I'll play in the contest. I might have some big exactas that's paying $50 for 2, and I might have it for $300 or $400 to use up my whole bankroll. But if I'm right, I know I'm getting to the leaderboard, or I'm getting to a prize position already. And then after I do that, then I decide, okay, who's on the leaderboard behind me? Who's close to me? Who do I got to worry about? Is such and such there? And then if those guys are around, then I know, okay, the target number I originally set is now not necessarily the target number anymore. You might have to bet to get higher than that. But I'm going to structure something, and when I go to the racetrack, I know what I'm betting. When I go to a contest day, I'm pretty confident I know what my play is before I leave my house or my hotel room. I'm locked in on what I'm going to do with that major first play that I'm going to make in the contest.
So it sounds like you are trying. You might make 1 or 2 bets, maybe a couple more, depending on the bankroll size and the format. But you're trying to, with one bet, get yourself, if not to the target number you think might win, right up there near the top of the leaderboard, where you're in contention to win. That's sort of, you're trying to do that in one race, right?
Without a doubt, yeah. I'm not like like you heard me say about how many races I play a day. It's not a lot, so I don't have a lot of opportunities to grind away. And if I got 1,000 and turn it into 1,800, I don't have the confidence that I can do that 8 times in a 10 race card or 6 times in a 10 race card to get my bankroll up to the number it needs to be to cash. And then um, so I'd rather put my life on the line on my strongest opinion and do that. And if it's the first race of a contest and I got to go broke in the first race and that's my best bet, oh well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not one of those who waits around, even though I had a thing last week where I qualified for the NHC where I sat around on one of my 3 entries to the very last race and played a chalk exacta that got me to third in the contest and got my second NHC, bid out of the way. So I don't normally do that, but this kind of thing, the way the contest was structured, I thought, making a 1 number chalk exacta would either get me to win or very close and get me to cash and it knocked my second NHC out of the thing. So I'm done with that now, and now I just concentrate on accumulating hopefully more of the other live money things, because that's what I love to do. I don't necessarily the NHC. I love the tournament. I know that one of us guys is going to possibly win $750,000. I think it's an impossibility to win that contest, even though my son won it, Jim Bennis won it. I still think it is so hard to win that contest, in my opinion. So for two people that close to me to do it just seems insanity. And if they already took the lightning bolt, how am I going to do it? I think that's a hard contest to win. I much rather take my chances that I can win a BCBC, because it really, really, attaches to the way I bet every day.
Yeah, well, it sounds to me like it's your turn. You've had Jim and Justin, so now it's your turn to win the NHC.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope I live long enough that I can do that. I don't have, when I go there every year, I don't have, and I'm a very confident player when I play, but I don't have a lot of confidence that I'm having a lot of success in the NHC. I've cashed a lot. I think I've cashed probably 5 of the last 8 years or something like that. And, had a seventh or eighth place finish a bunch of years ago. But that contest to me is such a grind. It is so hard. Not my style. And again, I love it because one of us guys in that room are going to walk away with what, $750,000. So where can we go and say that any other day of the year? There's not another time where we know one of us is going to win that kind of money. So it's still a great tournament. I mean, a great contest, because there's always that dream when you get off the plane in Vegas that one of the guys there getting off that plane are going to walk away with a huge check for the weekend. So, but it's not on my radar. I'd rather play in, we talked about this the other day. I'd rather play in 5, 6, 7 other live money contests: Breeders' Cup, Pegasus, Del Mar, Keeneland, some of those big money ones where I can walk in there and walk away with, a 6-figure weekend. More reasonable to me that I can do that than winning the NHC.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and the live betting brings in the whole betting aspect, right, that the NHC doesn't have. So, I mean, it is a whole different skill set that you need to apply. But for me, I like them all, but I totally agree with you that there's probably most of the players at the NHC feel like going into that contest that this could be their weekend. If they get lucky and get hot, they might win it. Whereas in the BCBC, I think it's probably a much smaller number of players going to that contest thinking they actually might win it. I think that's kind of what you're getting at.
Without a doubt, yeah. If I had to put the number of people who can win the BCBC, it's definitely a lot smaller number than it can win the NHC, because you really, you got to be so perfect. I sat with my son through the whole NHC when he won, and this is 100% I did not even know. And if you sat at our table, there's not a lot of table talk amongst us best friends, me and my son, during contests. I didn't even realize he was in contention until probably halfway through day two. And he, he plays his way. He plays totally different than I do. I taught him how to handicap. He looks for different things than I do, because he plays a smaller amount of money. But he was so perfect. I mean, you could probably listen to some of his podcasts years ago. I think, if I recall, I want to say in the first 2 days, I don't think he even cashed a dollar in the mandatories, but his optionals were off the charts. So when he was able to pick his own races, the numbers would blow you away. Like, he collected little to no money in the mandatories, but his optionals, he was like 80% or 70% right when he got to pick his own race. And I think that's my whole point here, is that I need to pick what race I want to bet for me to have success. And that's kind of what I taught him, that he did a good job of learning. Um, God, if you could pick your own races to bet and not just bet whatever race is up on the screen next, that's when you give yourself a chance to have some success. And that doesn't always even mean that you're having great success. Some of these guys who, Jim Bennis, who did this for a living, and Mike Maloney's that I've heard on your podcast, and Sean Borman, and some of those guys just absolutely astonishes me that you can make a living doing horse racing, support a family like those guys did. My hat's off to those guys, because that's a tough road, a tough life, and I don't, not something I ever really wanted to do or try. And that's a tough thing, and my hat's off to them for pulling it off.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of players out there that are doing it and making a living off it. It's a tough game. Like you said, it's gotten tougher over the years. And that's what the guys like Mike Maloney and Jim Bennis will tell you. It was
Yeah,
easier in the old days. But they're
definitely.
still grinding away and still successful. But they've changed. They've had to change and make adjustments. So what do you think is the biggest adjustment that you've made? You were playing back when it was easier with your numbers, and then you took a break and you came back and it was a little tougher, but you've had some success. What are the biggest adjustments that you made, over time to stay on top of the game?
Definitely being more selective. If I got to go through a whole card and do all the work, and not even come up with one bet, then I got to have the discipline to do that. That's definitely what I've, you know, really, really adjusted to, is, you know, only bet the races where I am really confident in. And if I can just do that, um, that's when I think, the success is. The problem with that is, you're putting in a lot of work. And if you're only betting one race, two races, races a week, you start to think to yourself, is this worth it? Do I, really want to spend all this time to only bet that many races a week? And then I think guys get caught up in the trap, like, I got to bet more races because I'm doing the work, or, I've lost my last four bets, I'm due. Well, that's not the way to do it, and that's what I've learned is, if I lose, for 2 weeks straight or whatever the thing is, wait, be patient, wait for your next good play. And if you do it the right way, and bet kind of the right way, you could overcome, some of those losing streaks, because I don't think there's many people, and we see that in the NHC. Just look, when you think about it, look how easy it sounds. Like, at the beginning of the NHC, that's all you have to do, is turn, what is it, $144 into $160, and you will cash and be advancing to day three. Now, when I tell people that I didn't make it to day three, I started with $144 and I only needed to make $16 profit, and I couldn't do that, they're like, why do you bet horses every day if you couldn't even make $16 over 2 days, you know? So that just tells you how hard this game is if you're forced to bet every race for the same amount of money. It's not something that is easy to do to be profitable if you bet a lot of races and if you don't vary your opinions bankroll wise on your stronger opinions.
So that being selective, and you seem to be highly selective, you focus in on primarily one circuit, and then probably aren't playing more than a few races per card on that circuit. So you become highly selective.
Definitely, and the contest stuff makes, when I look at that. I mean, the contest for me now, the live money. I'm a little disappointed that we don't have a lot more live money opportunities. It started a couple years ago where we had every weekend at least a $500 thing on express bet. Now, I can't remember the last tournament I live money played in. It was probably a few weeks ago somewhere. I can't remember where, but whatever. Or it was the Hawthorne Invitational. I think it was the last live money one we played in. And now my next live money one won't be till Delmar in a week and a half. So I look forward to those live monies, but we don't have a lot of them to go around, unfortunately, for some reason. And I don't understand why racetracks don't do it. You have people who want to do it, and it's money bet into your pools guaranteed. Whenever a guy signs up for a live money contest, he has to bet the money in your pool. So put those contests out there. It's only going to help your handle, and for some reason, racetracks aren't capitalizing that on that real well, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was tough just to get racetracks to even uh, do any kind of contest not that long ago. It's like anything in racing, change is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Taking any sort of a chance with something new. And plus, they just don't understand it. But you're right; it is disappointing. You would think either. I look back at over a longer period of time. There's a lot more opportunities now than there were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But you would hope it would continue to grow at a pretty rapid rate, and we kind of haven't seen that in recent years, which is disappointing for people who like to play in the contest. And like you said, the live money contests, it seems like it would be obvious to racetracks how it could benefit them. I mean, it's putting money in their pools. But
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
science
I
and
don't.
to there are tracks that have bought into it. Hawthorne's is probably one of the most prolific in terms of the contests. But Keeneland doesn't run that often, but they have some great contests. Monmouth does quite a bit. ExpressBet does do contests, so there are some there. But you're right. It just seems like there's an opportunity that's being missed. That more tracks could get on board with that, definitely. And contests are fun. And one thing about the contest is typically you're not competing against the computer teams, and we haven't spent a lot of time on that. But I did want to ask you about do you do anything, recognizing they're out there? Has that changed the way you bet or the way you approach the races?
I was so stupid and naive up until probably a couple years ago, listening to podcasts. I didn't even realize that that was such a detriment to our game as it is. And when I started to hear about it, understand it, and knew the effect that it had on what I do, that's when I'm like, wow, I didn't know this. Where was I? How come I'm not paying attention to this? And some of the people out there, the Pat Cummings who I've talked to, and these guys just basically have the facts right in front of them. How these people are hurting our game so severely, without a doubt. And that was definitely a reason why I left, the Gulfstream circuit, because I felt that those guys had such an advantage by being the last one in the pool. Like the other guys have said, it's they're creating their own market, and that's not fair to the guys like myself who supported Gulfstream day in and day out for you know, over a decade, and to give these guys that edge, just to me, is very not looking long term for the game, and just looking to capitalize on that short term turnaround of getting that handle, and don't care if they're chasing the everyday guys away. I don't know if that's their goal, because maybe their goal is that horse race. They know horse racing is coming to an end soon, and they want to capture everything they can. I hope that's not it. But just before I went on here, unfortunately, I just heard somebody text me saying that Golden Gate's closing their operations because Southern California wants to increase their field size. Now, I don't know if that's 100% true, accurate. Someone just texted me that, but I'm hoping we're not starting to see, racetracks even more so go by the wayside, because we love the game too much, and to see it go away, maybe it won't happen in mine and your lifetime, Chris. I'm hoping it sticks around long enough for me, but the game has gone in a bad direction in the last 10 to 15 years, in my opinion.
Well, I'm kind of old, but I play out in the West, and it would take me 10 minutes to list all the tracks that have closed in Washington, Oregon, California, even Mexico, Agua Caliente. Probably a dozen tracks have closed since I've started playing, and now we're down to, a couple in Southern California and one in Washington, and that's it for the whole Pacific Northwest, West Coast. Turf Paradise is going to close out, so even there, start going inland to Arizona. So yeah, it's been a brutal, nonstop consolidation. Tracks going away. So but we can't blame it all on the computers, right? They're definitely a part of it. They definitely might be discouraging players, but have you adjusted the way you bet or anything based on that? Now your awareness of they're out there. I mean, clearly, the late odds changes. You saw that all the time in Gulfstream. Does that change the way you bet or plan to play or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I am very aware of it. I try to bet as late as possible, which isn't the answer. I found out that's not the answer, because the odds, they still can change it after me. So, sometimes I wonder if it makes sense that you just bet your opinion early, and force them to see what you're doing, and force them to go the other way almost, because I think that's I don't know how they play. I've asked so many people, and whatever, that, that their efficiency of the pools. So, maybe we trick them, and bet our stuff early, and throws them all off. I don't know the answer. I'm just kind of guessing at certain things, but I've tried just about everything, and it just seems like they have such an advantage over everybody else by being that last guy in every pool. We like to bet, value, or we like to bet the price that we want to get it at. And it's so depressing when you bet an exacta that's paying $48. They cross the wire, and you think you're cashing for whatever you're cashing for, and then you look up and you're getting 80% of what you thought you were getting, and have zero control over it. And that never happened, up until the last probably 10 or 15 years. When I put a bet in with 2 minutes to post, I knew within reason I was getting back pretty close to what I planned on getting back if I was right. Nowadays it changes. Your price can be cut in half sometimes, and that's an impossible way for people to do this, and I think make a living at it, if that's what some of these guys want to do, or even the horse players like myself who just want to stay in the game and have some success. It's really hard for us to play every day when we don't know what the return is going to be when we make our bet.
Yeah, it's definitely another challenge to being successful.
Yeah, I never thought I had to look at that before, and that's something in the last 3 to 5 years. I'm scouring the the exacta pools and the trifecta pools, and you know, to the very last second or very last minute before I put my bet in, and then I'm just waiting so long. Where before I used to like to bet with 5 minutes to post, and years ago we could do that and still get close to what the odds were at that time, and now it's totally changed.
So, what about a couple other topics we haven't hit on? Record keeping. Do you keep records of your wagers, and you look at that, and do you use that to learn anything about your betting, or I'm just curious what you do, if anything, in terms of record keeping.
Yeah, most of my stuff is done, on my account, so I can see it day in, day out what I'm doing. The contests, what I do there is I know at the beginning of every January 1st, if I play in every contest, every live money contest, if I enter and just buy, the maximum number of entries, which I normally always do, there's a dollar amount that goes with that. And I basically say to myself, okay, if that's going to be $80,000 a year in live money contest entries, you buy two BCBCs and two Pegasus and two Keenelands, those numbers add up real fast. So if you're spending 80,000 and then travel to get to these places, which we don't have to do as much anymore, but once I reach $80,000 in return, that's when I breathe that sigh of relief. Like, okay, I know I'm spending 80,000 for the year. I already won 80,000 in cash and prizes. It's now June 20th. Everything from here on out is gravy. That's when I know that, okay, my year is going to be fun and successful, and it's worth what I do. And that's how I keep track of all of that stuff. My day to day keeps track of it by itself, because I'm always betting on my 180W site, and it's a good job. They track everything for me, so I don't have to keep track of that. I can pull that up every morning when I wake up and see how I'm doing year to date or the day before or whatever. And I do monitor that and make sure that you know I don't want to have years like I had last year at Gulfstream, because if I do that, then I need to get out of the game, because that's not fun. And I'm sure my wife and my sons don't want to see dad blowing tons of money that we earned in our business on horse races. I do that enough in the horses that I own now, so that's my other thing that goes with this is I gotta get a stakes winner soon so I can not own horses anymore. But I do love that side of it too. That's a lot of fun, and it's enjoyable, and I'll probably continue to do that for a long time.
So, owning horses, a little different than betting on them, but through the ownership side, what have you learned about the betting side, if anything?
Um, you know, it's a totally different thing when you own horses as far as to betting. But what you do find out from that side is to read a condition book, which is something that I think probably most horse players never did. That can be somewhat of a help if you know, sometimes we'll question, why is this guy running this horse in this particular spot? Either the drop, or he's, raising the horse big, way up out of his, condition for some reason. Well, if you know the condition book of where he's at, it might answer a lot of questions for you. This guy might have been trying to get in a race for 3 weeks now on the dirt. The race doesn't fill. So he's just running on the dirt because the horse is ready to run, and he's just rolling the dice that the horse likes the turf, or something like that. I think that could help you. I'm not saying it's a huge help, but it's another variable that might, answer some questions for you when you know the condition book for the circuit you're playing as to what the intentions might be for that horse through the trainer or owner's eyes, by knowing what's happening, because it's not easy. I mean, I'm very good friends with Larry Ravelli here in Chicago, and trying to get horses into races when you know circuits only run 3 days a week and they only have 7 or 8 races a day, you're talking about 24 races, in a week to fit conditions for horses that range from fillies, colts, 3-year-olds and up, 3-year-olds, straight 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds. If you do the math, it's hard nowadays to get races to go for certain horses. So knowing that condition book could help your horse handicapping too.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Do you bet on your horses?
Um, I am probably in Chicago. I could probably forward a text to you. My partner Mike Mulvihill, who's me and him own the same percentage of every horse, almost identical. We're partners on everything. We are probably the most overbet owners in the country. He sent me a text the other day saying that we've lost with more 2 to 5 shots than any owners in the country in the last 2 years. I think a lot of it's because, in Chicago here, people know who we are, and at Hawthorne, a smaller circuit, they always think that, because we enter a horse and Ravelli's our trainer, that, oh, they must know something. They're going to win for sure. Yeah, that's not what's happening here. So I don't get a chance to bet my horses because we are so overbet here in Chicago, and we haven't won a ton of races with a few. We don't have a lot of horses. I have parts of 3 or 4 or 5 left now and whatever, but yeah, I don't. And again, if I was going to bet my horse, it would have to be because I really like my horse. I mean, we're going to put him in a spot where we thinks he wins, but that doesn't always mean that he's still going to win that day just because that's where we entered him. The race shape still has to fit up and everything. So I don't bet my horse just to bet it because I own it. Most times I'm probably doing the opposite. I'd really have to really, really like him to bet him because I'm like, hey, just give me the purse money and the picture and I'll be totally satisfied with that.
Is it more fun to win a race with the horse you owned or to cash a big ticket on a horse you bet on?
I think it is more to go to that winner's circle. I mean, that is just so much fun to do that. With my association with Larry Ravelli now and his couple of his big owners or one major owner, Vince Foglio, Patricia's Hope. I had a unbelievable bucket list thing that I knocked off this year. I got to spend the entire week with them with 2 fills down at the Kentucky Derby. Like I don't own the horse. I don't own any of it at all, but I got to spend the whole week with them in the owner's box with them like I was one of the owners, and it was the absolute thrill of a lifetime for me. And if anybody, ever gets an opportunity to be at a Kentucky Derby in an owner's box with the horse, who ran second there, it was just a thrill. And I can't thank those guys enough for making me a part of it. And my wife, we just had an unbelievable week, and I thank them for it. It was really, really exciting. And to get that picture in that winner's circle with your own horse, to me anyway, is just it's hard to do, and it's something crazy for me, and I love it. Everyone, even if the 5 claimer, when I get that picture, I get a copy of it and I keep it, and I'm proud of it. And so yeah, that's probably something that's more fun for me, to be honest.
Well, you almost got into a Kentucky Derby win picture. 2 fills wasn't that far away from winning.
Yeah, no, I did, and I actually had they had another horse that day that won a $500,000 race at 38 to 1. So that set our day off to begin with. So I got in that winner's circle picture and got to experience all that goes with that with them, and cash in a nice ticket with them on that. So yeah, it would have been the ultimate unbelievable week if 2 fills would have ran another length and a nose faster or whatever it was. And um, so it was a great week.
I bet it was, pun intended.
Yeah.
So you mentioned early on that you were always a gambling fan. Is there other gambling games you play? If so, what are those, and has that influenced the way you play the horses at all?
Yeah. I do bet sports, not by my picks, um, I listen to people who are very good at it, who have a lot of success at it, and I'm not any good at it. I know I can't. I don't know if the Bears are going to beat the Packers, and I don't know any of that stuff. I don't work at it, but I do have some friends who are very good at it, and I follow their lead. Um, uh, so that's the only other way. I'll play some college football, a little bit of NFL on the weekends through the casinos here or through the apps on our phones nowadays. I'll do that, but like I said earlier, I lost too much money in some of those things years ago, and I know how hard it is. And if I'm not putting the work in, I'm not gonna go ahead and do it unless someone's given me some advice that they're really good at and proven history, and that's all that I follow. But I don't do any of that other stuff anymore. Other than just for fun. If I go to a game or something, I might make a little bet just to have some vested interest in the game. We're going to be going to the Padres game when we're at Del Mar on the Friday before the Del Mar contest. Me and my wife and Dylan Donnelly. So maybe we'll bet on the game for that. But other than that, I don't do a lot of that stuff.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here in a minute. A couple last questions I'd like to ask. First of all, if you had a magic wand that you could wave and to make some change to make the racing game better, what would you do?
I think the biggest thing that, in my opinion, that would help, have less wager types available to the public. You know, we have so many different opportunities to spread that dollar out within every race. I think if we went back and condensed some of that and made the pools bigger and gave people the opportunities to, um, you know, just have a pool or the win bet or the win pools were bigger or the trifecta pools or exacta pools. But when the money is spread out to all these different pools, even the daily or the person who comes out once in a blue moon, I think they take their bankroll and they say, I'm going to bet a 50-cent try, a 50-cent. They're spreading their money so far out that they really don't have a chance to have success. And I think we're chasing so many people away because if you're not going to win or not going to win once in a while and cash a ticket, I think we're just losing the people too easily. I mean, you see people go to the track and you'll see how excited they get when they cash a ticket. There's people, you'll hear them, they bet $5 across the board on their horse, cost them $15. Their horse runs third and pays $3.20 to show. They lose money and they're bragging that they're cashing a ticket. So make it so that people can cash tickets somehow, even if they're losing money. Let them cash tickets so they have fun. But all these additional pools that we have nowadays, I think, is a detriment. I think the tracks are still going to get the handle. People are going to bet what they're going to bet when they come out to the racetrack. And if you give them two pools or three as opposed to six or seven, I think that they're still going to bet the same amount of dollars with smaller pools. And that would be the thing that and getting rid of the jackpot things. I used to play those rainbows when they first came out. And I know it's a stupid bet mathematically, but I used to have success doing it. And that's why I did it for a couple of years. But then I realized, oh my goodness, you'd make a rainbow bet, and halfway through the card, it would rain. All the races are off the turf, and everybody got alls, and your tickets gone down to nothing. You lost money automatically. So I gave up on all those. I do play them only when it's a mandatory payout on that kind of stuff now, and that's it. Um, but changing the pools, less ones to bet into, maybe that's the way to do it. And I'm sure Pat Cummings or Marshall Graham probably might have more data on that than me, but I could be way off. But that's just what goes through my mind that might help.
And that's interesting. I haven't heard that before, but you're kind of like going back to the future and maybe all these new pools, you don't need as many, and if you tighten it up a little bit, it might help. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. All right, I want to wrap it up with a real high note, hopefully. And if you are willing to share with us like a memorable score, it doesn't have to be your biggest score, but what was the most memorable score you had as a horse player that you look back on fondly when you're reflecting on your career as a horse player?
It's a real easy one, and it goes back to, I want to say, 1997, 98. I had a horse that, it was called Hawaiian Lord was the name of the horse, and it was a horse that I was waiting for 2 months. It kept on getting bad trips and against biases and all kinds of stuff. And my mom, when she was alive, every Thursday she had a bowling league with her ladies friends, and then after the bowling league in the morning, they would go to the OTB at Arlington, and she would tell me, she would just say, "Can you let me know who you like?" And she would make, I would give her two horses or whatever it was in a race, and she would make dollar exacta boxes, all her and her girlfriends. And the day Hawaiian Lord ran, um, the horse was somewhere in the 25-1 range, and I gave her that horse as a key over two other horses. And I was at Arlington watching the race live, and she was at the OTB right across the street on the grounds of Arlington. The horse won. The exacta paid somewhere just short of a signer, because I know my mom didn't have to sign for it. So it was somewhere in the range of like 580 or $90 for two. I made a real big score, the biggest score of my life at that point by far, to probably get me out of the hole of what I owed everybody at that time, when I did it. But I had a buddy who was at the OTB at that point, and he came over to the track and he's like, "Frank," he said, "I think your mom and all her lady friends must have hit something big, because the whole place went up for grabs when this race ran." And that's when I knew that my mom and, all her friends cashed on their dollar exacta box that probably got them to be able to bet for the next 3 years for free, probably. So, not only did it make me money, but it made my mom a ton of money when she was alive, and that'll be the one. No matter what I ever do from that point on, money wise or cash in for a BCBC, it would never outdo having her involved in something like that. So that one will always go down as my favorite one, ever. And then obviously the second best one would be my son winning the NHC. That was, the one we talked about earlier. That, for him, it was just unbelievable, and for me to experience it with him is off the charts.
Yeah, what's cool about that is you're talking about three generations of your family, right? And all the way from your mother to your son. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else that we haven't hit on that you want to mention? This is your
Oh, I
last
think,
chance.
yeah, no, for everything that you do for the racing industry, and, on our committees for our horse players that you're a part of, all this kind of stuff is only just good for the game and helpful for the game. And us players, we really, really do appreciate it. And I know you guys probably don't get thanked enough for putting your time into, doing these podcasts and passing along. Hopefully some of the stuff I said gets people interested in the game, and maybe it helps them a little bit. I don't know how much I could have helped them by all the stuff I said, but hopefully it keeps their interest peaked and they keep on coming out to the races. And a big thank you to you guys and the other guys who do all these podcasts and are passionate about the game, like myself. It's very appreciated.
Well, thank you. And that passion comes through talking to you, and that's sharing that passion is one of the fun things about being a horse player in contest setting. We talked about that. There's a lot of camaraderie in the room, even though you're competing against one another. Because we all have that shared passion, and that's one of the things I like the best about the contests.
I agree. Yeah, that is a lot of fun when we're all in the same room, like, at the Hawthorne Invitational or BCBCs, NH, whatever. There's numerous ones when we're all in that same room, and we all want to win, but I think a lot of us are happy for most guys when, we get knocked out or we're out and you see that one guy who's walking away. A lot of guys walking away with scores, but when you see that one guy walking away with that huge score, uh, that's going to keep on coming back too, because there's always that chance that the next time it could be us. So it's fun, and I think it keeps us excited to see those things happen.
Yeah, the Edzo winning the Hawthorne Invitation was fun. I enjoyed that, even though I, I didn't have a great contest. I was happy for him, and it was fun.
No, definitely. It was real exciting to watch, and they'll have it again. I know next year, and we'll all be there, and hopefully it keeps on. It grows and grows, and Hawthorne does a great job for us. They're one of the ones that just try everything that they possibly can to keep us horse players, happy and do what they can for us, and that's appreciated from me too.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you again for joining me. It's a really great conversation. I had a lot of fun. I also want to thank all the listeners out there. Thanks for listening and for all the positive feedback. I appreciate that. And may you all boldly go where no horse player has gone before.